my philosophy is when you're forecasting something, you're putting your money where your mouth is, right? You're going to close it. This is showing that you as a salesperson, you have the certainty and confidence that you will close it.
You are listening to The Deal Breakdown with Derek Shebby, where we spotlight the best deals out there in B2B sales, from the open all the way to the close. Welcome to the B2B Deal Breakdown podcast, where we give you the play-by-play on some of the best deals out there. I'm Derek Shebby, and I'm excited to be meeting with Greg Shin. He's a sales director in the cloud computing industry. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, Derek. Absolute pleasure to be here. Really excited to just have this conversation and talk.
I'm so excited to have you on here. I know all the success that you've had over the years, and it's going to be a real treat for the listeners. So can you tell everyone a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in B2B sales for 4 years now running, obviously opting out of law school, which my parents are still a little disappointed about, but just kind of realized, my first job, I guess to give you a breakdown, kind of that millennial trend, right? Just kind of job hopping, really wanted to find the right place. But first job was at MRC Xerox, which is obviously where I met you as the director of learning and development for sales training. And, coming in middle of the year, I was a B2B field AE. It was just tremendous experience. Great. Obviously I was pretty successful there. After the year, moved on to another, HCM company, being FINRA Series 6 and 6.3 certified to sell, 401k plans to businesses. So another B2B field AE role. Then after a year there, realizing just I didn't like the corporate culture, it wasn't really a fit for me. Moved to Samsara, a startup that, my first inside sales role as well. So I was a little bit nervous about that, given, I always loved kind of, being a field AE, going out there and meeting customers in person on site. And, while they were a startup, I was employee like 422. By the time I left, they were at 1,500 employees, 15 months later. And I realized that, it was kind of my time to leave. And that's when I made the final jump to my current company, WorkSpot. I initially began as the first mid-market account executive to just, plan or devise a new go-to-market plan and just prove market viability. Once I was able to successfully prove that, quickly moved up to being a sales director for APAC and North America.
Wow. Check out that history. That's awesome. In just 4 years. So in terms of this place you're at now, what exactly do you sell and what challenges does your offering solve?
Yeah. So we're kind of a hybrid of an old idea plus some new concepts thrown in together. And it's really a lot of thanks to our CEO, Amitabh, who's just really this visionary in the tech world. Basically, what we do is we deliver cloud desktops to customers, to businesses, basically solving a lot of business challenges, especially, COVID-19, everyone working from home, shelter in place. A lot of these companies of all sizes, whether they're 50 employees or 50,000, they need a secure way for their employees to be able to connect in, do their work, and, not have any performance issues. And basically what we offer is kind of that desktop as a service solution where, whether it's an iPhone like this, an iPad, a MacBook, Chromebook, Windows, desktop, anything really, any kind of endpoint device, as long as you have, a decent internet connection, you connect to the cloud, and basically, you choose your configurations up there. So, if you need a high-end, GPU kind of enabled for 3D rendering and all that, all the way down to kind of a basic, desktop for, office, web browsing and all that, we deliver that as a solution. And, some differentiators that we kind of give is that, one, just leveraging two of the top three biggest clouds, so Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud. And then two, a lot of people are afraid of cloud because it's fluctuating prices, right? Month in, month out, you have no idea what your bill's going to be. With us, we offer, I think we're the only ones who really truly offer a flat rate price, no matter how much they're using it. So it's not based per hour or per usage. So budgeting wise, as they transition from a CapEx to an OpEx business model, they know exactly how much WorkSpot would cost them in their IT budget year in, year out.
Wow. It seems extremely relevant for the times that we're in right now, but also a huge challenge to solve. And I think it's one of these things that from, if you're selling to, I guess, in general, to into IT, and you're a B2B salesperson, you might not realize just how much time it takes to set up one of these devices for a new employee. I mean, we would think that it's like you click a couple buttons and it's ready to go, and it's off to the new employee, and they're onboarded. But I mean, this thing might take hours. It could take a day just to get one person's just all of their technology ready to go, from their phone to their computer. And the fact that you guys do that for them, for businesses, at a huge scale, sounds incredibly valuable, especially right now. And the turnaround time's evolved.
Yeah, actually, Derek, to go off that, I mean, let me give you a kind of a scenario with another customer, not the deal we'll be talking about today, but I talked to this company, the IT director there. He has 2 full staff IT members, probably salary of like, 80 grand a year. Their sole job is to order laptops, receive the packet, receive the hardware, prep it, do the updates, everything, and then ship it back out to their employees. That's their whole job. And they're about 2,000 employees. That's all they do. And, so while I'm directly hitting the IT space, it really also comes back down to, hey, imagine how much time you could free up for your IT staff where they don't need to do that anymore. And what used to take maybe 40 hours a week can be dissolved to 30 minutes a month.
Yeah.
And, and then now, they're exploring different IT initiatives, building out different things, and just freeing up so much time. So, it's incredible just to see the kind of impact and, the help that we're able to give to a lot of our customers out there, especially, like you said, especially given the times today.
I believe it. It's just mind numbing. If you've ever had to load anything on your own computer, and it's like, you've got to click the next button, and you got to make sure it's going in the right place, and you got to make sure everything's set up. And how do you know you're doing it right? I mean, these IT people are literally sitting in a room all day waiting for the next, they go, oh, I got to wait 2 minutes before I click the next button again. And I got to make sure it's routed all these different ways. And nobody signs up for that industry to just set up people's computers and the things like that. So it makes a lot of sense for what you guys sell. I'm surprised, it's taken this long to really get that done. And I'm glad you guys have it all figured out to help people. So I'm excited to hear how you helped a specific company in your deal, but why did you choose this particular one to share?
Yeah. So, Derek, as you know, I think for all sales reps out there, you're always going to remember your first deal, right? And so, I wanted to talk about my first deal here at WorkSpot, the first deal I closed. It was a challenge. It was way different from, obviously being in a different industry and, a different sales cycle and all that. A lot of learning curves, a lot of, falling on my face flat, and then, kind of ingrained in my mind that, hey, these are some of the things that I need to fix for next time. But, no matter what it is, every company I've been at, I always remember that first deal and, what I had to do and everything I had to do to get it closed and, basically make that the start to, my success.
I love it. Yeah. I want to hear about this one. Yeah. I'll never forget the one I did. It was in 2003, All Creatures Animal Hospital. It was a $4,000 black and white copier, if you can believe that. First deal that I sold. So yeah, you never forget, and they're always the most special. So, yeah. So how did you find this your first deal at this company? How did you find it? Where was it?
Yeah. So, this deal, kind of the way it happened was, so our sales staff at WorkSpot is pretty lean, just really 7 closing salespeople out of a organization of about 100 employees. And really here, it kind of came in inbound as an inquiry on our website. No one touched it for months, and then once I came on, I just was like, okay, let me sift through some of these old opportunities. I found this one, and being in the Bay Area, this was another Bay Area company. Reached out to them. got in contact with the COO, had that first meeting. And that's kind of how it started. So
Wait. So let's just slow down. There's a lot of interesting things on this one. So these guys, was it the COO that initially submitted the inquiry?
that's right. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the COO submits an inquiry. They probably get the auto response message. Someone will be right back to you shortly. And it's sitting there for months. And I guess that means business must be going well for your company at the point if that might have fallen through the cracks for whatever reason. But you looked at it, you contacted him. Was it right away that you got a hold of him, or was there some time that it took you to actually connect?
No. So that's it's a rarity, but I had his number. I gave him a call, picked up right away. I said, "Hey, this is Greg with WorkSpot. I know, apologies for the delay. I know you sent an inquiry a couple months ago, but would love to really talk to you and understand kind of, how we can help you here." And he's like, "Thank you so much for calling. We need a solution. I think you guys are it. I'd love to deep dive more. And, we have a bunch of problems we need to solve. And I think you guys can really help us here." And
Wow.
so it was just like, wow. I mean, you kind of got neglected. To also go off that, we weren't doing phenomenal, where deals were just falling through the cracks. It was more so just the back end stuff with our CRM and everything was just, it was a mess before, right when I came in. And, I was a part of kind of on the sales operation side, helping kind of fix up Salesforce and, cleaning up a lot of that. And, obviously the first thing for me, especially, kind of being that first mid-market AE and back then I was global. So, kind of working around the clock at customers in India, Singapore, Australia, Korea, everywhere in the world, even South America. And, I guess, for every B2B sales rep out there who's starting out, right, you got to look for the low hanging fruit first.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
Yeah.
and also it's also a credit to maybe your marketing to get them to find your website and realize, I mean, if that's what they're saying to you over the phone, it sounds like they were already interested. So they must have either from word of mouth or just the way that it was being positioned from a marketing standpoint did a good job. So that's a good teamwork. So you set this meeting with this customer. So tell me a little bit about the opportunity that you found on that meeting. What were the challenges they were facing, and what'd you close for the next step?
Yeah. So obviously, I think a big thing was just one thing I was always able to excel at was that first discovery call meeting, and just had the meeting. It was obviously virtual, just through Microsoft Teams. Just talking to him online. Understood that the use case, and we want to identify what the use case was, and basically the way their organization operates is that they have half of their staff in India, and they heavily rely on them to deal with very, very highly confidential information that needs all the security protocols and all that, and they didn't have really a complete solution to do that. They were using like a kind of like a bandage fix VPN solution, but the performance was terrible, the latency was terrible, the transfer speeds of the files was terrible. So basically, he came to me and he said, if there was a way for us to be able to deliver them desktops, and that's the thing about the cloud, right? Is with Azure, Microsoft Azure back then, 60 global regions worldwide, and there's 2 in India. We put the desktop in the India data center, and boom, they had phenomenal performance where that cloud desktop, there was like almost no latency. So it felt like it was just a piece of hardware. And, and then the backend architecture stuff for them to really just connect in, securely connect all through, do all their work, and, not have to worry about, compliance and all that.
Wow. What a dream solution it sounds like.
Yeah.
And so, wow. So, okay. So they had this, that was their big challenge was, it sounds like there's a lot going on with, it being international and that team that they had in India. So you learned about these specific challenges, the actual use case for them, but then what was next? Like what did you close for at that meeting?
Yeah. And, Derek, I got to give you credit for this, but uh, when I was at MRC and, when I was learning from you, you were the one who recommended the Challenger Sale book. And, that's a book. I swear I had the copy. I was ready for this, but I don't have it on me, but I still have that book. I read it at least twice a year just to get refreshed on it. And that's something I kind of live and die by. And one of the things is always go for the soft close, right? Always challenge the customer, always go for the soft close. So, set the agenda, do all that. And then at the end, I said, hey, so honestly, given the situation, given your timeline, and, kind of fulfilling and this was before we had a full functioning SDR team too. So I had to do my own qualifying, understanding that, the budget was there, he was, one of the decision makers, the need was there and the timeline was imminent. I said, okay, I think the next step would really do a proof of concept, so to speak. Let us kind of like a free trial, 1 to 2 weeks. We'll spin you up a couple desktops, in India and also in the Bay Area for your end users. Have them test it out, see how they like the performance. And the sole purpose we really do that is to just validate end user performance, right? Basically having their employees say, yes, I like it. Yes, I love the performance. Yes, I could see myself using this for years to come.
That's great. So, and then obviously they're good with it. And you started doing this test while this was going on, this proof of concept. Were there any hiccups, any challenges you ran into along the way?
So that was the big thing, right? Was, looking back and, even talking with some of my colleagues, this customer was not necessarily a good fit. And let me explain why for several reasons. One, they didn't really have an IT department or an IT staff. They didn't have anyone to kind of manage and do all that. Two, they were on a different cloud from ours. And three, they had no Microsoft Windows, Windows OS kind of expertise in-house. So, there was, I think so I guess to backtrack, the POC was successful. Everyone loved it. We moved on to the next steps and, we had kind of a prerequisite document and I was like, hey, it's basically like a checklist of everything you guys need to kind of have to fulfill before, we could take an order. And so, immediately he said, oh my God, we're missing all of these. And so I had to scramble and thankfully we have a very healthy partner channel, where we have a bunch of different, third-party IT, outsourced IT providers, managed service providers, got them connected with one, and then kind of, tag teamed it to basically get their infrastructure set up ready for them to use WorkSpot. So that was the first challenge. And then the second challenge, and this is kind of, kind of just crazy, was from the beginning of the sales cycle to the end, my main contact and the decision maker changed 4 times.
What?
The COO left, a new COO came on, that new COO also left, and then the CTO was the main contact. And then from there, the CTO also left. And so immediately some, red flags came up where, oh my gosh, is this an unstable company? What's going on? But, after having done more research on this customer, obviously they were healthy and they were just trying to get their ducks in line in terms of having, the proper executive staff.
Yeah.
And finally, it came down to, and this was weird, it came down to their corporate counsel as my main contact. Wow. And the final decision maker being the CEO. So, basically, and, obviously if someone's leaving, for some people, whether they're disgruntled or not, or they're excited for their new opportunity, maybe they might not pass down, all the information of all the projects that they're working on and whatnot. So almost every single time it was kind of a restart, right? Re-educating about what we do, re-educating about how we're solving that solution, all that stuff. And then, then the same objections would come up and it was just kind of like, almost like deja vu repetition, just going back and forth, hearing the same objection 4 times in a row and then answering it with the same answer and then, them accepting it and then moving on. So that, that was, yeah, Yeah. So lesson learned there really, Derek, is, and I mean, it's my fault, honestly, but, make sure to have a lot of different champions, a lot of different stakeholders in a deal, right? You can't just rely on one person, because that person leaves, that person gives up, whatever it is, then, you're back to square one.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think it's normal for you to have four different stakeholders like this. And even going to the legal counsel's the person, and the corporate counsel is the one that ends up, finally saying yes. And the CEO. So, I mean, you went through the whole executive team. How long was this deal start to finish?
Yeah. So even with all those hiccups, it was still within a 60-day sales cycle.
Wow. That's
And
quick.
yeah, and that was actually, kind of one of the validating steps for me, was that, me being brought on to WorkSpot as, to see if mid-market is a viable kind of market.
Yeah.
Our enterprise reps, their average deal cycles were 12 to 18 months. My first deal was 60 days. And then my next 9 deals were also all within 90 days. So I just showed that, hey, there's much faster velocity and all that. So, even with all these challenges and roadblocks, still managed to close it within 60 days.
That's awesome. Now with the trial that you did, the 2-week trial, did that happen with your first contact, or did that roll into your second?
It happened with my first contact. And after that trial was over, and basically they said they're happy, they love it. He also at the end said, Greg, by the way, today's my last day. Here's a new person. I'm going to pass on some notes, but this is who you'll be talking to from now on. And I was like, okay, hopefully you pass down, some accurate notes, but appears he didn't. So it was kind of a little bit of a step one, going back to step one, but no need to do another POC trial kind of thing again.
But you obviously took good notes from that trial, and had all the details, so you could share, hey, listen, we just did this with this person, and then and it worked.
Yeah. And I think that was the thing too, was that, we had 5 test users, their staff in India and in the Bay Area. And so even with every new, kind of main contact coming in, I made sure that those 5 were included. I also had quotes from them, emails from them, stating their feedback, stating what they thought, just to kind of, really validate and, kind of expedite that, no matter if they're coming into this, deer in headlights, not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, that's great. It's almost like you had a story of what's happened up until then. So every new contact that you deal with, new COO along the way, you just say, hey, look, so we first got in this, 3 weeks ago with this person, and this is the story of what we did. Here's the use case, and this is why it's still a great decision. You're ready to move forward every time, right?
Yeah.
So you eventually got to the proposal. So did the proposal happen with the first contact or the second contact, or?
Yeah. So basically so we don't have a formal proposal deck or anything like that. It's basically, we agree on pricing and all that. And then, we send a quote out, execute the quote, and then, we transition them to our implementation customer success team. We excel in this whole idea of a land and expand.
Yeah.
So we needed to get an initial land in there.
In terms of that number, what does that relate to, like a budget or a quota?
Yeah, so that was about from a ramp standpoint, that was about 120% of my quota for that quarter.
Oh, for the quarter.
Yeah.
So just to start these guys off in your whole land and expand strategy, it was just starting it off was 120% of your quarterly quota.
That's right.
That's a fantastic start, land and expand. Amazing. Yeah. Okay. So from there, did it grow from being from the start? Did it grow from being 120% of your quota to larger?
Yeah. And, one of the things that I think makes us really stand out from other SaaS companies, because I've looked at Gartner market trends and all that, but the ideal, especially for VCs and, other investors and whatnot, they want to see these startups basically have a year over year, customer dollar retention rate of 140%. That's like the sweet spot, right? So if they spent $1 last year, they're spending $1.40 this year. Our company, WorkSpot, on average, we have a 225% year over year dollar retention rate.
Wow.
So that means they more than double. So yeah, I mean, they are now, basically about triple the size.
That's great. And
Yeah.
that it's a credit to your solution in that you help free up their time to do other things and use that, use those resources better to help them grow. So I think that's a stat I would be using all the time. I'd say, hey, we help companies go, reallocate their IT assets in ways where they can grow their company 2 or 3x, something like that. But that's
Right.
fantastic,
And
man.
yeah, and to go off that, right, we're a managed solution, and we're basically infinitely scalable. Like our limit is the cloud, and as everyone knows, the cloud is almost kind of limitless. So basically, as these, and this was a startup company as well. Once they got their next round of funding and they started hiring, they were like, "Hey, we got 50 new users. We need to add them on." And within 3 hours of them telling me that, and then getting the next 50 user expansion order signed on, we got those licenses provisioned and those users ready to go. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
It seems like if you're growing a company and you're scaling in general, why wouldn't they use your service? So you presented the quote, I guess, at least verbally, saying, at the start, 50 users and this is the cost. How soon after that? I mean, because I know this took about 60 days and you went through all these different people. How soon after you presented that, the costs and your quote, did they move forward?
Yeah. So first I mentioned the cost actually on the discovery call, because I just wanted to say, do you guys have the budget for this, right? And
Yeah.
he said yes. And then on his last day, I gave him the formal, a PDF quote, and then he passed it along, and then every decision maker kind of whatever, and then finally when I the final one, who was the general counsel, legal, right? Uh, you know, uh, that individual was unsure, and was like, "Oh, hey, I think we should put this on hold for now." And I already got this far, and I think a big thing for me is pride as a salesperson is that I forecasted this deal to my basically my VP of sales, and my philosophy is when you're forecasting something, you're putting your money where your mouth is, right? You're going to close it. This is showing that you as a salesperson, you have the certainty and confidence that you will close it. So basically, since the legal counsel was kind of the final roadblock, this is where I did out of the box thinking. I realizing that their HQ was not too far from my house, maybe a 20-minute drive, and I've never met them in person. I just drove over there and went in, and then honestly, stroke of luck, but ran into the CEO there, and I said, "Hi, I've been working with your team. I've been working with several people. I know this solution can help you. I know this solution will be able to help you scale and get exactly where you want to be. Can you and I please have 15 minutes sometime this week for us to talk?" And he said, "Yeah, we can do that." And I said, and obviously I'm not stopping there, right? So I said,
Yeah.
I just pulled up my calendar on my phone and I said, "What day works for you?" It was Tuesday. I was like, "What day works for you this week, on Wednesday or Thursday?" And then he's like, "Oh, I have to check." I'm like, "It's okay. I can wait." I was just being persistent. I was like, "I can wait. I'll be right here. Just let me know when's available and then I'll schedule that." And, I could tell he might've been a little annoyed, but he also saw the determination. And I think that kind of, spoke to him in a sense. And so, he followed through, gave me a date, a time, and then we had the call. We went through it all, kind of went through, what it would look like, everything. And then after that, he's like, "Yeah, no, I love it. Sounds great. Let's do it." Sent him the DocuSign, got it signed the next day, closed. So, but again, to go back to your original question, from presenting that formal piece of paper to the first main contact and then shuffling through 3 others and then getting to the CEO, that was about 3 weeks. It shouldn't have taken 3 weeks. It should have taken at most 24 hours.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think what you did, I just want to, I want to, I guess, celebrate that, because a lot of people would, a lot of B2B salespeople might be nervous to go directly to the CEO and say, "Hey, we got to do this." I mean, I know you were looking for probably any of your contacts at that point when you went there, but still you had that moment, you put yourself in that position to go to the CEO, and you believed that your offering would make a difference in their business. Like, you knew it. And I think sometimes we think back and go, well, if the customer's not jumping on what we offered them, then maybe they don't believe it, but you did. And they've grown, as you said, 2 to 3 times the size. And your solution is probably one of the reasons that helped them do that. So I think it's absolutely fantastic that you went there yourself with that purpose and that intention, and you made it happen. So it's fantastic, Greg. Awesome job. Now, what about competition? I know you weren't sure if everyone had the fixed pricing that your service offers, but did you find out at all if there was competition involved at any point?
Yeah, so there were two main competitors, right? One was another kind of cloud-based solution on their native cloud that they were already on, but it was a little bit clunky. It didn't deliver the performance that they were expecting. It was fluctuated pricing, obviously, so budgeting was kind of iffy. And then on top of that, they didn't have the certifications for the compliance and security protocols that they required. And then obviously the second competition was, incumbent, right? What they're doing today, which was right. Just that, VPN solution and all that. But really, I think I opened their eyes. I was like, look, like this investment is not just, you guys virtualizing these cloud desktops, but it's so much more. Now, what if you do a BYOD, bring your own device policy? Because yeah, they can have their own, physical hardware, but you spin them up a desktop and then they can securely access that on their hardware. Or two, and this was a huge point for them too, was, obviously if any of their employees take their laptops home and there's all that, confidential data in there, and let's say their car got broken into, their laptop was stolen, right? Obviously it's compromised, huge risk. Well, with us, hey, that happens. Literally, that person would just notify, the administrator. Administrator would literally just go in, delete that desktop from that computer so that they, whoever it is can't ever access it. And then they need to get back up and running. Hey, you have a existing, I'm sure you have your own personal computer, or go to, the nearest Best Buy or, Walmart or something, go buy a cheap Chromebook or tablet and get back to work. And that was another big thing too, right? To go off of scalability that we mentioned earlier is, some of our customers, and we have a lot of testimonials and all that from a lot of our customers on our website. But I have one particular customer who brags and he raves that they do a lot of merger and acquisitions. He can open a new office or set up a new a new acquired company in 3 days. And I was like, that's phenomenal. And even with some of the other companies that I talk to, they tell me it takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months to get a new office up and running. And I was just like, look, like you can do it under a week with us. I mean, how much time and money is that going to save you? And so I think there were so many different value props that I didn't want to list them all. I didn't want to regurgitate it. I didn't want to overwhelm them, but I wanted to make sure I got the key ones that were really going to be pertinent to this customer and just drill down on it. And then, always, and, tip for, all the sales reps out there is that pain point, that use case that they have, always circle back to it, because ultimately that's why they came to you. That's why you guys had the initial conversation, and that's what you're solving.
Right. Absolutely. And I think just like you just mentioned, from the discovery, from that first instance, and you finding out what they needed it for, you never let that go. And I think that helped you also build confidence in going in at the end saying, we need to get this thing done. Like, I know you guys need this. I know your company could use this. And so, and also along the lines, you knew where competition couldn't match it because of your own expertise and what you learned about what they were doing today. You knew that you had an edge with certain aspects of your offering. So that's fantastic. Now, looking back, if you were to say, as a whole, what do you think were the 3 things that won the deal for you?
Yeah. One, again, kind of just like I said, right? you got to circle back to their pain points, right? Circle back to their initial use case and how we're solving it and how we're basically alleviating it and making them better on it. So that's, first and foremost, the most critical thing, I think. Second, provide resources and additional value. We introduce them to partners to, get them set up, from an outsourced standpoint. And then two, having readily available reference customers. And, basically, I mean, that's another thing I love about our customer base and kind of our organization is that every single one of our customers, if I reach out to them and ask them, would you be able to take a reference call for a potential customer? I have never had anyone say no. Every single one of them will say yes. And so then, I don't want to be biased. And so I set them up for a call and then I drop out of it. So, I'm not part of it. And so they can have a candid discussion, but being able to provide, kind of the additional resources and reference customers like that so that they get, more reassurance that this is a solution for them. And the third thing is that, it's just having tenacity, having just having that mindset is, sales is tough, right? Like, I mean, you and I both know this, no matter what industry you're in, B2B sales is always going to be tough, but you got to always, and this is just something that, I just remember and I kind of always ask myself is, or I kind of always repeat to myself is, if it were easy, everyone would do it, but it's not easy. And so how hard do you want this? How hard do you want to win? Don't give up. Even if everything's stacked against it, even if all the odds are stacked against you, just continue pushing, and being assertive, not standing down. And I think another thing too that to go off that from, and this is where I want to incorporate the challenger sale is, challenging the customer, right? Asking them questions that make them think. But then even too, I guess to give you a little bit insight on the closing process, when I talked to the CEO, he said, hey, we're, an early seeding, company. Is there any way you can give us a discount? And as you know, I'm not a fan of discounting. And I believe that what we're not the cheapest solution by far. I'd say we're not the most expensive, but, pretty high up there. But I do believe that everything we deliver and everything we bring justifies that cost. And I said, hey, I understand you want a discount. I understand that. But look, this is honestly for everything that we're delivering. This is a fair price. I can't give you a discount because this is, these are all the things that we're doing. And, the CEO took a long, hard stare at me and was like, okay. Fair enough. Just thought I had to ask. And so, yeah, I think those are the kind of, the three pivotal things for me that helped me win this.
Wow. I love this. I love this story. This is great. But I mean, are there things that you would, obviously this is the first deal in a new industry for you, which is always, I mean, it's challenging in itself, but the first deal, you're breaking records about how fast these deals could happen. Which there's so many great things that you did right, obviously, but are there things that you would do differently and that you have done differently as a result of things you learned in this first sale?
Absolutely. And, it circles back to my whole story about the sales cycle, right? Is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't trust your one main contact. Don't trust your one main champion. Build a rapport, reach out to the other, stakeholders, decision makers, influencers, evaluators, whoever, whatever you want to call them. Just make sure that you've touched as many different contacts in that company or prospect as possible so that, in case any of them go dark on you, leave the company, whatever it is, you have some other people to fall back who will support you at the end of the day in making that decision. So that's, I think, the first and foremost thing. The second thing is I don't know if I would have done it differently, but I think it was just kind of something that, I kind of going on to, maybe I'll talk about it later. But my big thing for every company I've been at, and I want to reference back to our Xerox days and, doing that demo certification with you and all that. I love to master the knowledge of our product, the limitations, the values, and just know our product inside and out, whether that is a physical piece of hardware like a copier, or some kind of SaaS-based solution that's not tangible, so to speak. I want to master it. I want to know the ins and outs of it. And so I know I kind of, this deal was kind of imminent to me early before I was able to kind of immerse myself more deeply, but always make sure that, you know your product very well, that you can speak on it. And even if you're not, the technical guy, and, you might have a sales engineer or a solutions engineer who's usually on the call to help with the, more of the technical side of things, being able to hold your own ground. Right. And that's also, I guess, once I moved into the sales director position and overseeing a mid-market team, one of the big things, I got to say, a lot of it was just, kind of copied off the Derek Chevy playbook was, hey, I want to spend a lot of time in making sure you guys understand the industry, but more importantly, our product, where we stand, and just knowing it inside and out completely. And one of the big things that I was able to also accomplish with that is, before sales reps usually required an SC even on the first call for, any kind of technical questions that might be thrown at you. I've gotten my team and myself to that level where first, even second call, they can handle, I'd say, at least 80% of technical questions and objections thrown at them, and be self-sufficient enough so that they don't need to pull additional resources, and then engage them when they absolutely need them, right? And so it was just, improving that efficiency from an internal standpoint in our sales organization.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, people, so the B2B salespeople listening in, what Greg just said is really powerful, because you might be in an industry where you have to bring in where you feel like you have to bring in some sort of technical expert, but what you don't realize is you can solve or handle practically all those questions yourself. But when you bring in an expert, you're slowing the sales cycle down for you and for the customer, right? You're slowing down the momentum. You got to keep that thing going, and you never know what one person's going to need to move forward. They might not need the exact terms and conditions details of what your product or offering does. They might need exactly how you can deliver it and how you can explain to the customer. So get prepared for that. I love it. So any final words of wisdom, Greg, things to share with the audience, help bring them more value in their deals?
Yeah. I mean, I think kind of circling back to some of the things I discussed earlier, especially with everyone doing remote selling right now, always establish an agenda, have that, communicated to the customer at the beginning of the call or prior to the call, and then establish a timeline for every single next step. Don't free flow it, don't digress to other topics. Just make that concrete timeline that you and the prospect can always agree on. And then, have those calendar invites sent out, ready to go, because otherwise, especially if, some industries, you might be buried in leads and opportunities, and they'll fall through the cracks. And if you don't do that, you could potentially lose what could be an easy win or a quick win, or a win that could potentially be, even a couple of months, years down the line, still bringing you more revenue, more commissions, right? Second to that is, obviously going back to the challenger sale, stick to your guns, right? Stick to your guns. Don't cave, really challenge the customer to think, and soft close every conversation, every meeting. Always try to, make sure that they understand, like, hey, if XYZ were met, can we agree that this is a solution? Are there any other success criteria? Make sure that, you understand the whole play field, right? Like, you don't want anything kind of slipped out, or, maybe you forgot to ask a question or maybe a requirement, and then all of a sudden towards the end, they're like, oh yeah, this was a requirement. It's like, if that was communicated to you before, then, sales rep, it's your fault. But if it wasn't communicated before, then you got to stand your ground and say, hey, Mr. Customer, this was not communicated before. This was not part of the scope of the project at the time. We can handle this later, but for the time being, with the success criteria that you've conveyed to me and us having met that, we should be able to move forward on this. And that that other requirement, that's something that we can handle, with our implementation and our customer success team. So, and then, the last thing, right, is, and I know I mentioned it earlier, but it's all about mindset. Everyone's working from home. One of the big things, as I was sharing with you, Derek, is, for me, I've worked from home for, quite some time, even before COVID, and I've never ever worked in, my PJs or anything like that. I try to always wear, jeans, slacks, a polo or a nice t-shirt, something like that. Even if, half the calls you're not, or even if the majority of your calls you're not going to be on webcam, I think it just establishes that mindset for you that you're working, right? That you're not kind of, home working, kind of that, blend and all that. So, there's just these habits that, you really got to instill. And, also, again, I mean, like I said, right, is ask yourself every single time, no matter how difficult it gets or frustrating it gets or how lost you might feel, how badly do you want it? How badly do you want to succeed? And if you really do want it, you're going to give it your all. And, and at least for the things you can control, you gave it your all. That's all you could really ask for. Right. And that's my words of wisdom, really, is that those are the, I think those are the key components, the core foundation that I built upon to, even in this day and age, to be successful and still, continuously just immerse myself in not just this new industry, but the sales organization and all.
Yeah, what you've been accomplishing in the past 4 years is going to be way more than you ever could have done, I bet, as a lawyer. But I bet you probably would have been pretty amazing as a lawyer too. And who knows, you might make that a challenge just to get your law degree, after you've already achieved incredible success in sales. So if people wanted to reach out to you further, ask you questions, or even to learn more about your company, what's the best way?
Yeah. So I highly recommend LinkedIn. Derek, I'll give you my LinkedIn URL. Send me a message, connect with me, just reference that, you listen to this podcast, whatever way it is. I'll also give you our company website, just if you want to learn more about, kind of our information. Not too keen on sharing my email yet, because, do get a lot of marketing emails and a lot of SDR emails. So don't want to accidentally filter them out and, kind of put them in a separate inbox. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn, I'd say, way more than I've ever used Facebook. That's kind of, wow, I just feel like I'm getting old in a sense where, social media for me is now LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn is the way to go. So please feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to talk further. But again, all in all, the core foundation of how I was able to get to where I am today is, having a mentor like Derek, who obviously was my first sales mentor, in my career, at my first job. And then even though I've left, after a year, and then, moved company, keeping in touch, right? And just acknowledging that this person was the person who helped you out the most in the beginning, and continuing to foster that relationship, because who knows where, whether it's a year, 5 years, 10 years down the line, where either of you are going to be, right? And that's why, again, Derek, even with us, for us to be able to stay in touch since 2016, it's 2020 now. Wow, 4 years. And sometimes it feels like it was last month when I was down there with you in corporate, just doing your sales training.
Well, hey, you've done this all, and you had some help, Greg, but you still went out there and crushed it yourself. So, and you've been doing it wherever you've gone. So I'm really excited about the success that you've already been having, and I know there's so much more success that you're doing with developing people on your own, and even all the deals that you didn't share today. You're always welcome to come back and share some other ones, because I know that the listeners will get a lot out of it. But Greg, thanks again for being on today. This deal was it was very fun to listen to, because it's always great and so insightful hearing about someone's first deal in a new industry.
Absolutely, Derek. It was my sincere pleasure. I mean, honestly, I have so many deals that I'd love to talk to you about and all that, but and be on the lookout too for all the listeners. I'm hoping hopefully by next quarter, I'll have one of my guys kind of do this too and share their deal, because every deal is a snowflake, right? Every deal is different challenges, different objections, different kind of sales cycle and motions that you have to go through. And I know that especially for one of my reps, what he can share, I think would provide a lot of insight and value, to everyone out there.
I know it will. And we'll also be able to listen to it from when they talk about their manager or their leader. We'll know that they're talking about you. So thanks again, Greg. That's it for today's session, everyone. Thank you so much, Greg, for helping all of our fellow B2B salespeople out there improve their sales skills. For our listeners, if you'd like today's highlights, and the things that Greg mentioned, his company and his LinkedIn address, be sure to check out our summary on modernSalesTraining.com. Have a great sales week, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Hey, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, then you have to come check out our free Top Performer Academy course. Inside it, I'll give you 12 sales tips that only the best salespeople do on a daily basis. Tips ranging from cold calling to running effective appointments, handling objections, and creating urgency in your deals. You can get it 100% free at www.modernSalesTraining.com/free. That's modernSalesTraining.com/free. These 12 tips could be the difference between you having a good month or an incredible one. I hope to see you there.